Today, I got a couple fun new pieces of gear that make life easier for people that love to do advanced panoramas or work in really cold conditions or doing night star photography and time-lapse. Well, hey everyone, Hudson. Welcome to this week's Approaching the Scene. I'm going to talk about a couple of fun new products that kind of answer questions that I think a lot of you have been asking via email, via the comments on the YouTube videos. And just keep in mind that you as a community really do drive the content that I put out on this channel through your questions, through your emails, through your interactions, which I just love. So keep it up. You're doing an awesome job. I want to thank everyone so much for sharing, liking, subscribing, and helping the channel to grow. It's been just awesome, and I really, really appreciate it. I want to welcome everyone to join up with my office hours next Tuesday. That's June 22nd. We're going to be going through your images of long exposure, whatever your favorite long exposure image. Submit that when you sign up for office hours at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. It's a free 1-hour interactive session with my good buddies Rick LePage, Woody Adams, Darren Lloyd, David Archer, and we'll talk about all things photographic, take your questions, but we're going to run through your gallery of images, and you've all been sending in amazing images, so make sure you get yours in there. You can join us on Zoom or YouTube. I'm also putting links to all the stuff that I'm talking about today in this video's description. If you click the title or show more, you'll also find a chaptered out table of contents in there with clickable time codes. And there's also just a scroll bar along the bottom where you can just click and watch or rewatch any section of this that you're interested in. Doing something kind of interesting today. You guys can choose to comment on it or not. I'm actually shooting with an Atomos NinjaV 10-bit off the Z6 II. I've had the NinjaV for a really long time. I've only played with 10-bit a little bit. I haven't set it up to do ProRes RAW, but there's some changing light conditions out here. I thought it'd be interesting to see how it handles higher dynamic range. It's just some fun stuff I've been playing with. So if you notice a difference, let me know in the comments, send me an email. All right, so I want to talk about a couple of things first. First, I saw that Really Right Stuff came out with this new Panorama gimbal system. It's 1 pound. It's a lightweight system. It's designed to hold no more than 8 pounds, but most of us are shooting panoramas these days with mirrorless cameras or a DSLR and a smaller lens. For years I have advocated building this larger multi-row advanced panorama system. If you're not sure what an advanced panorama is, next to a simple panorama, I have an ebook on simple panoramas that talks about it. I have a whole course on doing advanced panoramas. There's a lot of videos out there. I'll put a link to the course page about that. There's some free downloads. There's a lot of material that I have about panoramas. Panoramas are a big passion of mine. Basically, it's to avoid parallax. So, look into that a little bit, but, moving your lens backwards over the axis of rotation avoids parallax, things appearing to move as you shift the camera with relation to each other, close and far. And having a multi-row system really can eliminate that for bigger, more complex projects where you've got close and distant elements, especially when you want to do multi-row or you're sitting on the top of a mountaintop and you want to shoot the sweeping scene off the escarpment and keep that ridge close to you with a wide-angle lens all in the scene at the same time. You can run into some real problems tilting and doing panoramas. Even if you have a fluid head that pans and tilts level, you can run into problems because as you tilt, it moves that no parallax point in your lens forward of the axis of rotation or backwards of the axis of rotation as you rotate. So I've advocated a long time having this system, and it's been in my links, and I'm actually pulling it out. It's a couple of rails that you buy from different sources along with a big Really Right Stuff panning clamp. I particularly like the one with the lever. And the honest truth is, Really Right Stuff just came out with a system that, for me, pretty much obsoletes this older one that I've been using. And it's all orderable as one piece. It weighs about the same as that whole, just the one clamp, costs about the same as that one panning clamp that I just showed you in my system. So I'm probably gonna sell my panning clamp to pay for this. So there's a couple of different methods that you can use for putting this together. It'll work with a fluid head, it'll work with my lightweight pan and tilt head, it works with a ball head, it works with any head that you can get level, essentially. And you can level a ball and use this system. So, the way I'm working with my fluid head right now, if I just loosen my Leofoto 75S leveling adapter. I love the fact that it's right by my pinky finger as I'm using both hands to do that. I'm looking at the Manfrotto heads level. Boom, it's level. I'm gonna go ahead, pull my nodal rail right out of my clamp here. And then all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna set that in my stone bag below the tripod right here so that it's out of my way. And I'm gonna go ahead and clamp the Really Right Stuff, this new PG01, and there's a link to this in the video's description. It has a center point, which you can just center in your clamp right here. And then it has a little knob here that you turn that lets it swing. So it shows pretty close to level. I can get it just right with my leveling adapter. This is probably the point to actually level your head when you're looking at its nice big bubble level. It has a bubble level right on the end here. And then you're gonna set it in position, just like I would with my larger clamp system, so that it centers your camera's sensor right over the axis of your tripod's rotation. You're gonna lock your tripod so it can't move. And the only thing that's moving is this. All right, how do you find that? Well, that's pretty simple. Basically, you're going to clamp your nodal rail. I love the Kirk LRP3 adjustable nodal rail. I've got videos about that. I'm gonna link that in the video's description too. It lets you work with shorter lenses on mirrorless or longer lenses on DSLRs. You can adjust where the camera is on that slider. There's another one of these knobs right up here. And what I would urge you to do is get this straight up and down and take a look at your live view on the back of your camera and just move the camera forward or back on this, moving this vertical rail along the horizontal rail. So you're sliding this whole vertical rail right here along the horizontal rail until your lens is centered up dead center over the pivot point. You'll see it. You can see it on your live view, whether it's centered up dead center. Put your rule of thirds grid up on your display. It'll make that a little bit easier so you have a center crosshair system, and just move it back and forth and you'll get it dialed in there. And then it's as simple as, you know, pulling out your measurements of which lens you're using at what focal length and what the no nodal point is. And the nice thing about the Really Right Stuff lever clamp, which is why I liked it in my vertical panning clamp that I used before, is that you can open it halfway. This is all the way. The nodal rail will come right out. At halfway, the nodal rail is locked, but you can move it forward or back. So you set that no parallax point you've measured for your lens. And I have a whole list of no parallax points for the Z6 II, Z7 II, Z6, Z7 with all of the common lenses that you might use with those cameras. That's downloadable. I'll put a link to that in this video's description as well. Remember, just click on show more or click the video's title. And all of a sudden you're off to the races. This little knob lets you tilt, and you're tilting in that same directly over the axis of rotation with your nodal point. You can tilt up, you can tilt down, you can pivot left, you can pivot right. And my only caveat to this is this system's designed for 8 pounds. Now, there's not really much I do with panoramas that's more than 8 pounds, especially if it's gonna have a close object. You know, I can't imagine using a 500mm lens with some close subject that I need to worry about parallax. You know, again, that's more kind of advanced pano stuff. You don't always have to be back over your no parallax point if there's nothing in your frame that's close enough to worry about. But for more complex scenes, this is really handy, and particularly wide angles with close subjects tilted. It makes a huge difference being able to have a system like this. The caveat is that this little knob, when you twist it for panning, if you open it, you start to get play in the system. You want to just barely turn it about just a milli-inch, you know, not very much at all, just a tiny little bit, and you'll be able to rotate, and then just a tiny little bit to lock it. That way you don't have any play in the system. And it works fine for me with my 14-24, with my 50mm, with my 20mm, with my 24-70, even with my 70-200. Not a problem with this setup. So I can't imagine needing anything more. It weighs, again, about half of what my other system weighed, costs far less, than especially when you consider using a good panning clamp like the Really Right Stuff panning clamp with the lever. and it's just a breeze to use. So there are two versions of it. I'm linking both in the video's description. One has this lever clamp, which I'd really suggest if you can afford it. It's about $60 extra. I think it's $240 for the whole setup if you get the lever clamp. It's $180 if you don't. So you save $60 supplying your own clamp. I'm putting links to both of those setups in the description. Seems pretty reasonable to me for what you're getting for the weight. This takes so much less room and less weight in my bag than this other setup. All right, so that's the first gizmo I promised I'd talk about. The second is a brand new lens warmer. I've gotten a lot of comments from people doing Milky Way photography. It's Milky Way season. I'm wrapping up the Milky Way course. I'm shooting it as we speak, and I've really been having fun kind of learning more about the complicated details of ISO and read noise versus gain noise and a whole bunch. There's a lot of fun stuff involved. But one frustration for people that's kind of universal across doing time-lapse and night photography, especially if it gets a little cold or if it's humid out, is getting condensation on the front element of your lens. And I put a link to a lens warmer that's no longer available. And I've had a lot of people asking me, hey, I can't get that lens warmer. Which one do you recommend? So I actually ordered several, and I've been testing several of them. And I really like this one. It's thinner, it's smaller, and yet it's kind of thicker as it goes around the lens. It wraps, it's not quite as long, but it's plenty for me for either my 20mm or my 14 to 24. It'll work on my 24 to 70. It wraps right around the focus ring, so you can do your manual focusing holding onto it, still put a hood out in front of it. And then one thing I really like, it's got a USB input, and it's got this little controller on it, and when you hit it, it can go low power, medium power, high power, and so you don't have to cook your lens. If it's really, really cold, you may need to put it on high, but in most situations, low is gonna keep the dew off your lens. Just, practice with it and see how it works for you. But I think it's nice having that temperature regulator on there and that voltage regulator on it. So a really nice one. Hopefully they keep this one in stock. I like it. It fits in my bag nicer, feels a little bit better made, and again, it has that 3-stage heat control, which I think is a really, really nice thing. Okay, so thanks everybody for watching. I'm gonna be headed to New York, first trip to New York in a really long time for my brother-in-law's 50th, and also gonna spend my birthday in Manhattan with the kiddos, show them Central Park and the Natural History Museum and have a little fun. New York's opening back up and we'll get to see my wife's family, so I'm looking forward to that. That's in about a week. Not long after the office hours. I hope you will join us for office hours. Make sure and submit a long exposure image if you haven't already. I can't wait to see everybody and look through all those images. We already have a bunch of amazing ones. I'm going to talk about some filter stuff, some neutral density filter changes that I'm making during that office hours too. So there's a little preview for that. I got a lot of filter stuff coming up this summer, along with Milky Way and some time-lapse stuff that I'm looking forward to working on ahead. So there's a lot of fun stuff this summer. And of course, I can't wait to get out on the workshop starting in late August. We're gonna go into Brookings, then the National Parks Loop, Yellowstone, the Tetons, Moab in October, and then Cuba in November. So it's fun getting back out there. I hope everyone else is getting creative, staying safe, getting back out there. Again, signing up for office hours, that's at hudsonhenry.com/office hours. Links to all the stuff I'm talking about in the video's description, as well as everything that I use is constantly updated at hudsonhenry.com/ATS links. All right, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Hit me up with any questions or comments. You guys do drive the content of this channel. I'm easy to get. I love hearing all of the thoughts and questions and comments. So keep them coming, and we'll see you next week.